She was just 17, and you know what I mean. And the way she looked was way beyond compare. How we doing, everybody? Good evening, and welcome to Horror Hump Day. It's Wednesday, so that means I'm gonna read you some really horrible fucking story that should scare you. If it doesn't, well, it's at least there to make you think about stuff. That's what I do. So anyhow, uh, yes, welcome aboard. We are going live from the remote b.hive studios tonight, and we'll probably be doing this for a while until you know um, things slow down at the b.hive homestead. So, but anyways, just thought this is a little more intimate, and people at my house don't have to hide and be quiet and be out of the way or whatever, and this just kind of works out for everybody. So nobody has to be uncomfortable, and I can read my stories the way I want. So, anyhow, is this thing even on? I'm not even. I'm not even. Oh, it says I'm live. But am I? But am I? Let's see. Do 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 do. Let's go here. And then. Well, yeah, there it is right here. There I am. Okay, so there we go. Kevin's on board. Good evening, Kevin. And yes, it is No Sleep Wednesday for you, sir. Hopefully you'll be able to sleep. This one is set in the near future. Tonight's story is called The New Flesh. We're on chapter 6 in my book, Pavor Nocturnus, which I published back in 2023. Hey, Beth, how you doing? I hope Bobby is all snuggled and safe next to you. And I hope he doesn't pee the bed. So, anyhow, last night's Tunes on Tuesday went pretty well. I thought it was going to be a solo night. Hey, Jessica, good evening. I thought it was going to be a solo night, and who pops in is Bobby Paulson. So, it was good to see him, and it was nice that he could join me there for the last few songs. Tonight, however, as always, I usually do these horror hump days on my own. It would just be weird with a drummer in the background. So, yeah. Gypsy's already sleeping on the couch. Well, she's probably still on Florida time. So, there you go. Yeah, so, anyhow, tonight's story. What I've done with this book, in case you don't know, I mean, most of you guys do because you guys are regulars here. But if you're new and you're watching, I read short horror stories to you guys that I've written and published. This book's a little different. Each chapter is a short story, but they all get tied together at the end, and you'll all see that eventually if you stick around. So, but this is a longer book. Some of the stories are a little longer than usual. Tonight's story took me about 30 minutes, 33 minutes to read through it. So it should cover the whole hour. So far, if you're joining us, we've seen a little boy who was being terrorized by the devil in his closet. We saw a woman going through the apocalypse with the Antichrist, who gave her some mutated strain of syphilis. We joined a young girl who was suffering fever dreams and was being attacked by starfish that were trying to eat their way onto this side of reality. We have also dealt with werewolves. Young Linda was becoming a werewolf and she didn't realize it, or the Lugaroo. And then we also dealt with witches, where an Alex Profetti realized that he had forgotten that he had signed a contract with a witch, and he was a rich, famous record producer. So, anyhow, tonight story. Each one of these stories was created by a prompt that was given to me by readers like you, and some are friends from high school. Some are just friends that I've made now. Tonight's dream was written by one of my best friends, Jenny. It was written by her son, Felix. And this one was a little hard to write because he gave me 3 stories or 3 dreams. And I couldn't figure out which one to pick, so what I ended up doing was I ended up kind of weaving them all together into one dream. So that is tonight's story called The New Flesh. And let's see, what do we got here? I think we got most of our people here. I don't see Bobby or Chuck here, or Shannon, but I believe Shannon is on vacation. So I say we just jump right into it. What do you guys say? Ready for a story? I think I got the voices down that I want. It's a narrative. It's told by, what do they call that? First person or whatever. So that the main character is kind of narrating the story. So really, it's not too many voices that I have to deal with. Oh, I'm sorry he isn't feeling well. I think he kind of ran himself exhausted. I hope he feels better when he wakes up. Thanks, Beth. Everybody wish Bobby good health. So, all right, well, let's jump into this since Bobby is crashed out trying to heal. And Chuck, I'm sure, will show up soon, as he does. I didn't know why I wear these because I can't read close up if I wear them. So, yeah. So I won't wear them until afterwards. All right. Speedy recovery, Bobby, from Jessica. All right, here we go. The New Flesh. Boom. All right. The New Flesh. This was the hardest to write out of all the stories. I was sent 3 dreams to choose from, all of which had a story to tell. So I decided to add them together. 1, the dreamer was in a loop and kept living the same day over and over in a strange school and couldn't escape. Story 2 was the dreamer was at a hospital type place in a nightmarish city with their mom and sister. The walls would sometimes be made of flesh. People were weird looking and moved super fast. When thrown through a window, those people turned into rag dolls. And dream number 3 was a zombie apocalypse scenario where soldiers came and shot up a survivor camp. So for tonight's story, I thank Felix Kelly for writing this story, or for giving me the idea for this story. And let's jump into it. Grief is a funny thing, you know? You take for granted the fact that the ones you love are just as fragile as the next person. Then, in a brief, terrible moment, they're gone. You try to remember their faces, the things you did together, and the things they said. Then they're gone in a puff of smoke, and you're left with the most unfillable emptiness. My dad was the first to go. "None of you!" he said with such a sorrowful voice it makes me cry just to remember it. "None of you understand me!" He was packing his duffel bag, and Mom was trying to calm him down. None of us knew how impossible that was going to be, because we didn't know about the virus. Not then, and not for another year at least. He was a solid father. He taught me what it was to be a man. None of that machismo bullshit. He taught me to have power over my emotions. They were okay to have if I didn't let them take control of me. He said to respect women and to treat them like partners if I happened to find a special someone. He was my rock, yet here he was, falling apart. I'd never seen him like this, and I have to be honest, I can't even remember what started the emotional outburst. We were all in the family room watching Netflix, and when Dad came downstairs screaming his head off, he looked drenched in sweat and his eyes were bloodshot. He grabbed a painting off the wall and threw it into the flat screen we were watching. My little sister Willa had jumped behind Mom. Mom was not the type to put up with violence of any kind, but she did believe in giving Dad a chance to explain himself. And that was the problem. He couldn't. This virus broke down something in your brain, and the first signs are fever and irrational behavior. "I'm trying to understand you, John," Mom said, trying to stand between him and us kids. "But you know better than to start throwing things around the house and screaming at the top of your lungs. We can talk about it." "Fuck talking about it!" he screamed in her face. "And fuck you!" "Get out," she said, as calmly as she could. "You're right. You need to leave. We'll figure everything else out later." But there was no later. Mom had to figure it out on her own. We never saw Dad again. I'd like to think he's in one of those camps, the ones where the government tries to cure you of the virus, and maybe he's sitting happily in a cot, not aware that his family is somewhere out there, fending for themselves in this apocalyptic hell. I have mixed emotions about that, but my emotions are in check. The Humpdays rabbitovirus was rumored to come out of Antarctica, but nobody really knew the truth. People were calling it the Hannibal flu, because it eventually caused its host to bite and sometimes eat others. There were stages to the sickness. 1 was a high fever, 2 elevated blood pressure, 3 extreme irritation, 4 vomiting, 5 biting or eating other living flesh. There was no cure once the patient got to the vomiting stage. Those people were euthanized. The others were taken to camps, which were rumored to be worse than the world out here. It wasn't really rehabilitation, but experiments. Those were the stories that were told by those that had claimed to see the other side. When the pandemic broke out and ravaged the population, humanity was scattered. Some wanted the safety the government was offering, and moved into the fortresses that were set up in the bigger cities. Others, like Mom, Willa, and me, fended for ourselves in the abandoned outskirts. We relied on the kindness of strangers, which in most situations was non-existent. But we had each other, and I trusted Mom's judgment of people. We hid out at a base that was once the Weta Indian Reservation, that sat hidden away in the jagged spires of the Badlands. White Creek bordered the little area with spires guarding the north border. There were trail cams along the creek bank and in the canyon beyond. We had early warning systems that kept 18 of us feeling as safe as we could. Sometimes, I wondered if Dad was somewhere out there, worried about us. Maybe this virus was a hoax and he was just upset about some untold argument between him and Mom. It made me feel good to tell myself this lie, and it kept me going this far. Since I was the oldest, I got to go on scouting missions. We would go into formerly populated areas like Keystone or even Sturgis and scavenge supplies. We would sometimes run into the infected and we'd have to shoot to kill. I thought very briefly about what would happen if I saw Dad out there, if I could shoot him. But so far, I hadn't had to kill anyone or anything. Oddly enough, the infected weren't as scary as the other people who were also trying to survive. The infected only wanted to eat or spread whatever nastiness was in their bodies to others. The other survivalists, well, they had reasoning, cruelty, and opportunism. They would stop at nothing to get what they wanted, even if that something was sex. There were rumors of rape gangs, but we were fortunate enough not to run into any of those. Yet. There were stories about what was happening inside the government zones, too, that were horrendous. I had heard from Cole Aberdeen that some of the experiments were to turn people into living flesh dolls. They had developed a synthetic skin from mutated cancer cells, and they would graft these things onto your former skin and would turn you into some kind of maniacal living mannequin. But again, these were rumors that were told from person to person, and you know how far that goes. I mean, look at organized religion. All that dogma and scripture is rooted in centuries of oral history. Some guy looking for a spiritual awakening in the desert eats a mushroom, boom, he's talking to a flaming bush or a shining light from the sky, and alakazam, you've created a religion. Sorry, that's a soapbox moment. Growing up, going to church, and then living out the rest of my life in this apocalypse has made me a bitter Catholic. So enough on that. Life on the res was hard. When this piece of land was populated by the First Nations people, it was rough. Add in infected people who wanted to chew on you like bubblegum, and desperados willing to let their animal instincts kick in, made it worse. Then there were the soldiers. Faceless, robotic humans who were constantly on the hunt to liberate our survival colonies. It made it that much harder. Everything we did had to be done in silence and away from the prying eyes of scouts or drones. Some of the younger members of our group didn't even know how to talk and would use sign language instead. We wore moccasins to move silently. Some of us were barefoot. It was amazing to me how fast we all adapted to this lifestyle. There was no technology for us out here. No internet, cell phones, no Xbox or electricity. Not even running water. Well, unless you counted the gravity system one of our group had set up. We used stealth weapons like knives and bow and arrows, spears and slingshots. My sister Willa had become quite a silent warrior. She hadn't had to kill anyone or anything, but she could move about pretty stealthily and took to sign language like a second nature. It made me a little sad because, well, I forgot what her voice sounded like. Kind of like how I forgot what Dad's laugh sounded like. But then, now I'll never know. Willa liked to climb the spires, and she used an old pair of binoculars to look around at the land around us. It was a routine thing she did. She was sure-footed and stealthy. Mom had faith that everything would be okay if she were to wander on her own like that. I was uneasy about it, but I'm a big brother, and that's what we do. To protect ourselves from being spotted by government drones, we wore beige capes. When a drone was spotted or heard, we would lay down and cover ourselves with these capes. It was solid camouflage from the air, and we were 100% undetectable. What we didn't expect, what Willa didn't expect, was detection from both sides. She had stumbled upon a group of infected. They didn't spot her, so she was able to climb away from them without being detected. The only problem was there was a surveillance drone just on the other side of the rise she was climbing. It centered in on her, and an alarm went off, screeching and echoing off the canyon walls. It alerted the infected that food was near and was feeding coordinates to nearby rehabilitation teams. "Oh shit," Mom said. "Where's Willa?" "I'm not sure. I was just as alarmed as her, and I couldn't use my binoculars because Willa had them. I'll go up on the spires and check." "No. Take shelter. I'll go look. I'm not losing 2 kids in one day." I wanted to argue, but Mom had already made it halfway up the spires. I ran into a hole we had hidden under a facade. I could barely hear Mom calling Willa through the high-pitched whine of the drone alarm. And suddenly there were gunshots. The rehabs were nearby, and now there was going to be a firefight, possibly with a group of infected going after Willa, or possibly with Mom. More than likely a little bit of both. The others in our camp were scrambling. Somehow the infected got into our camp and were attacking us. I could hear triumphant growls and others screaming. I was hoping Mom and Willa were safe. I wanted to peek to look, but I also didn't want to give away my position. The screaming, gunfire, and growling were suddenly in chorus with one another, and I thought I'd go mad from it all. Then it began to peter out, stray gunshots booming as an afterthought. Coughing and weeping somewhere in the distance. It was over. I could hear the trampling of boots in unison. They stopped in the middle of our encampment. A mechanized voice called out, "Attention, citizens! We have been sent by your government to liberate you. You no longer need to hide. We can bring you safety. We can heal your sick. We can feed your hungry." "Or they'll kill you if you refuse," yelled a familiar voice. It was Mom. Sounded as if she were in danger. I heard something crack, and Mom yelped in pain. "That's a false narrative. We have secured and liberated your cities. They are safe. Thousands of your fellow citizens now live in these cities free of fear." "These are lies! Don't listen to them!" There was a gunshot. It echoed off the spires, and suddenly I heard Mom, loud and clear. "Willa!" I broke cover. I had a wrist rocket filled with ball bearings. Before me was a line of soldiers standing at attention behind my mother. She was on her knees, cradling my sister's lifeless body in her arms, crying. I wasn't sure if the ball bearings would puncture the soldier's armor, but I was going to try. I pulled back the rubber tubing of the wrist rocket, as far back as my arms would allow. My fingers were shaking as I held the ball bearings in my thumb and index. I aimed at the soldiers holding that smoldering gun, and I let it rip. The two ball bearings hissed through the air and made loud tapping sounds as they ricocheted off the soldier's helmet. "Take her," he said, pointing at me. "Go through this encampment and make sure no stone is left unturned." Now this part is blurry. I believe I was tasered at this point, and things went black after that. When I came to, my vision was still blurry. I think I may have been drugged, but I wasn't sure. I had a heck of a headache, and then became alarmed as I felt fingers stroking my hair. "Who the?" I jerked. "It's okay, honey." It was Mom's voice. My head was in her lap. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, and it looked as if we were in a hospital of some sort. The walls were painted a dark red, and lights above were a little too bright. Next to us lay my sister on a metal table. "Willa!" I began to cry. The soldiers had shot her in the head. I couldn't bear to look at her. "This is my fault, Felix," Mom said glumly. "If I would have complied, they would not have shot her. This is on me." "No!" I stood up. "They should have just left us alone. They had no right to bring us here. Where are we?" "Rapid City by the looks of it outside. I think we're in some kind of hospital right now." "Did they leave Will out here for you to wallow in guilt?" "Rightfully so, I think. You should stop your aggression. It leads to death, my son." "Well, fuck that!" An elevator door popped open before us. A mechanical voice came over the intercom. "Welcome to the American Rehabilitation Center, Rapid City. Please step into the elevator before you." "I don't trust it," I spoke. "Come on, Felix." Mom sounded defeated, and that tore at my heart. "Please don't be alarmed. You have been brought here to be analyzed and re-educated. If a vaccine is needed, we will administer. Please step into the elevator." We stepped in. The door slid closed, and I heard air pressure being released. Then a plume of steam began to fill the car. "Do not be alarmed. You are being bathed in medicated steam to disinfect any harmful particles that may have attached themselves to you. The procedure is harmless." Mom and I were covered in sweat, and then blowers dried us off and sucked out the medicated steam. Then a series of red laser lights began to scan us. "Subject, Jennifer Josie Kellerman, aged 51 years, last known residence, 3221 Blakely Street, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Scanning. Subject, clean. Subject, Felix John Kellerman, age 17 years. Last known residence, 3221 Blakely Street, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Scanning. Subject, clean." The elevator stopped, and the doors hissed open. Beyond it was a long hallway with the same dark red walls. A conveyor belt hummed forward to a double door at the end of the hall. "Please step out onto the conveyor. This will be bringing you to central processing." "What have you done to my sister?" I shouted. There was a moment of silence. "Please step out onto the conveyor. This will bring you to central processing. We ain't moving until you tell me what's happened to my sister. Felix, please, Mom said, grabbing my arm, and I shrugged her off. Subject, Willa June Kellerman. Age, 14 years. Subject, deceased. She will be processed with the others who were liberated. Liberated? I said angrily. You mean killed? Son, you're going to get us... Please step onto the conveyor. This will bring you to central processing. Any deviation will be considered an act of aggression, and you will be liberated. We stepped onto the conveyor. It jerked us a few times, and we had to hold on to each other so that we wouldn't fall. When we got to the double doors, I heard the lock disengage, and the doors opened automatically. The conveyor belt came to a stop. The room was dark, except for the spotlight that was shown above us, and the light from the giant glass windows that surrounded the long table, with what seemed like human shapes sitting around it. Welcome to Central Processing. Please remain on conveyor until instructed to do otherwise. Thank you for your compliance. Good evening, citizens, a voice came from the darkness. It had that fake ad man tone to it. I think it was one of the shapes we could see silhouetted at the table. My name's Mr. Hamner, and these are my colleagues, Mrs. Calvin, Mr. Drist, and Miss Simon. We welcome you back to society. Society? I spat. I consider this kidnapping. Ha ha, the young, full of vigor and life. Why don't you let us go? We don't want to be here. Is this true, Mrs. Kellerman? Mom stood there silently for a moment. I squeezed her hand, hoping she'd speak up in that strong, rebellious voice I've known my whole short life. We want to be here, she spoke. Mom! I was shocked. It sounds like your son disagrees with you, Mr. Hamner said. He can be strong-willed at times. Yes, we can see that. But that's okay. We have a re-education program that can help him integrate into society again. Being so young through the pandemic, it's very understandable that one would be so hesitant to come back to civilized life. As for you, Mrs. Kellerman, please step over to our recalibration table. Lights turned on over what looked like a wall made completely out of skin. There were red veins laced all through it, and it seemed to pulsate. Mom looked hesitantly at the apparatus, and then back at me. It's okay, honey. It was Dad. He was covered in this new flesh. His face was all doughy with tiny pupils and a pudgy smile that seemed to defy the weight of his face. His voice was like an old-time radio announcer trying to sell you Lifebuoy soap. John? Mom asked. Is that really you? Yes, honey. It's okay. It's safe. Join me. You'll see. Mom slowly stood up. Mom! I said, grabbing her arm. What are you doing? She broke my hold and then hugged me and placed a kiss on my forehead. Mom, please don't. She walked over to the wall of flesh and stood before it. Place your feet on the foot pattern before you. She did. The wall moved towards her and stopped just short of her face. There were clicking noises and whirring sounds coming from above and below her. Don't be afraid, Jen, Dad's lifeless smile said. He placed his pudgy hand on her shoulder. Join me. Join society again. I have missed you so much. Felix? She said, looking back at me with a hint of fear on her face. And it was then. The wall enveloped her entire body. She was encased in this sheet of flesh. I could see her struggle, and I cried out. Relax, boy, Mr. Hamner said. Your mother is being changed so that she can withstand any exposure to the virus. We're helping her. You're killing her, I shouted. Dad, stop this! It's going to be okay, kiddo, he said. Soon you'll join us too. We can be one big happy family again. How could you? How could you? What about Willa? Who's Willa? I heard shuffling. Footfalls that clicked and clacked so rapidly, it seemed impossible. Before me stood one of the people that were sitting at the long table. She had long blonde hair that surrounded what resembled the face of a Cabbage Patch doll. Her head was round and puffy with new flesh, her eyes sunken into them like two raisins. She had a hideous smile that stretched from her left temple to her right. She slapped me before I could absorb what I was seeing. I fell to the floor, but was able to stand up again and tackle her. The touch of her skin was revolting. It felt as if there were other things crawling underneath it. When we were both able to stand up again, she came at me, that nightmarish speed. But I was able to pivot enough to use her inertia against her, and she sailed through one of the giant windows. Glass buckled and exploded as she broke through and plummeted to the ground below. Two others raced up to me, and before I could throw a punch or a kick, one of them injected me with something, and my knees gave out. The last thing I saw was Mom writhing in that horrible flesh cocoon. So, well, that brings us here. The American Re-Education Facility. I don't know how long I've been here. Time is not fluid here. I suspect this is due to drug interference. There are other kids here of various ages, but we're all in uniforms that are the same dark red as those walls in the processing center. The building, as far as I can deduce, is perfectly square. I'm guessing about 4 stories high, but I can't be sure because the doors here, now this is going to sound crazy, but the doors do not always open to the same space. I know that sounds confusing, trust me, I know. But there are no staircases going up or down. Even though when I look out the classroom windows sometimes, I'm high off the ground, and other times I'm garden level. I don't feel that we rest. We're just constantly going to class. If not in a classroom, then we're led into a giant theater and shown movies. But the movies only project pictures when you look straight at them, not when your head is turned away. There's no adults except for the staff. And those guys, well, they're all covered with that new flesh that my mother was engulfed in. I can't bear to look at any of them in those little raisin eyes of theirs. I think I'd go mad if I did. They move impossibly fast, and their strength is tenfold of what a normal human is. I watched a teacher the other day throw my friend Max through a wall. There's only this one door that leads outside, and it only goes into a courtyard, a serene park that's surrounded by dark red brick of this building. I wonder where my mom is, and what have they done with my sister's body. I think those two things and the faint memory of my father are the only things that keep me alert. I go through the motions, do what I'm told mostly, but the fire inside me to resist is still there, burning a hole in my guts. "You'll never get out of here," a blonde girl about 14 says to me. She's dressed in a green outfit, and I notice that none of us in this class is wearing that color. We're all in that dark blood clot crimson color. Most of you won't. You aren't compliant. "Who the fuck asked you?" I snapped. She acted so pious with her green form-fitting uniform, long blonde hair and deep green eyes to match. She wore the most hideous eyeshadow I'd ever seen on a face. "Exactly," she sneered. "That sort of attitude won't get you back into society." "Well, who said I wanted to enter society? Walk around with fake smiles encased in that grotesque skin suit?" "I find it beautiful." "Well, you would." The bell rang, and it was time for the next class to start. She stood up and placed her hand on my desk. She looked into my eyes and whispered, "There are more ways to escape than you know," she said, and walked out. I looked down at my books, and next to them she had left a note. "Sit next to me in the theater." The mixed message made me more confused than I already was. I stood up and headed out the door to the theater. The theater was set up with stadium seating. A thick velvet curtain, the same color as everything else, hung about the room. She was in the 5th row, staring straight ahead. I slowly made my way to her, trying hard not to make it look obvious that I was looking for her, or that I was purposely sitting by her. On the right side of the row, from her to the aisle, were kids in green uniforms like her. Scattered about to the left were kids like me, pale-faced and clad in blood-colored oversized jumpsuits. "Sit with your own kind," she said loudly. "What?" I looked shocked. "Did you want me to sit by you or not?" "Me and my group have worked hard to get to this level." She was standing now and throwing a tantrum. "Your Phil should be sitting in the back rows." Two of those puffy-faced ushers scrambled over to us faster than I could react. "What's the problem, child?" one of them asked through too many toothed grin. "I refuse to sit by this filth," she announced. "They are beneath me. To be one with society, one must learn to ignore differences and celebrate your commonalities." "But," the two ushers pulled out what looked like pen lights. The ends of them glowed a horrible green color. "Comply, child, or you will be dropped a level." Their voices were soft but threatening. The blonde girl huffed in my direction and then sat down, unfolding her arms. When the ushers returned to their posts, I leaned over and whispered to her, "What the fuck is your issue?" "Play along," she said, staring straight ahead. "We all must play a part." I turned my attention forward, and the giant curtain began to pull back. Images began to dance on the screen. They didn't seem to mean anything. They were random, and the characters' faces were blurred out for some reason. Don't stare directly at the screen, she whispered. The images are only a facade. They're programming us through subliminal signals being broadcast behind them. I suspected she was telling the truth. When I turned my head, I felt as if I was being pulled out of a lucid dream. Don't turn your head, she spoke again. Just redirect your eyes to the corners of the screen. When I did that, the screen looked like it was filled with static, like a television station that had just gone off the air. We're playing the same game, you and I. But you are going about it all wrong. The more you act compliant, the less suspicion you draw towards yourself. And now I understood what she was doing. After this movie is complete, follow me, but don't let it look like you're following me. Can you do that? I think so, I spoke. Not good enough. You must do your best. They'll catch on otherwise, and we'll be punished. Well, you'll be punished. I'm at the lowest of the low. There are worse things than being a level 1. Trust me. The thought of that frightened me a bit. I did my best to stare at the corner of the screen. We didn't speak again until after the film was over. It seemed to take hours, but there were no clocks or watches here. The only thing dividing time were those bells. When the film finished, everyone got up and walked out of the theater single file. No words passed between anyone. The ushers stared blankly at us as we shuffled past. Back out into the hall, I kept 25 feet from my new blonde compatriot. She had stopped a few times to have a shallow conversation with other green-garbed students. Then she moved on to a door. She looked briefly at me and then went in. After a few minutes, I walked through the same door. It was the courtyard. The sky was an electric blue filled with clouds that looked as if they were painted or airbrushed onto a canvas. There was a light source from somewhere that could have been the sun, but it didn't get off any heat. It also did not shine like the sun did when we were out on the res. The blonde girl was sitting on a cement bench, pulling out what looked like a bag of soup packed into a Ziploc. I walked to the bench that sat back to back with hers and was separated by shrubs. That your lunch? I asked. Yes, she said, not looking in my direction. This is the new food we are given to get used to what will be our new way of eating. New way of eating? Look in your pocket. I did, and within it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that was cut into several squares. Reds get what used to be normal food, she said. When you make your way to green, your food will be partially liquefied. How many levels are there? 3. At least, that's all I've seen. It's hard to tell because so many people come and go from here. But I believe there's red, which you are, then green, which is what I am, and finally, there's blue. When you're blue, you receive the paste for nourishment. Shortly after that, you receive the new flesh, and you can join society. Well, that's just fucked up. None of us know this is happening, for the most part. I think they drug us or hypnotize us. It causes hallucinations, and it makes time stand still. Sometimes it goes backwards. I don't know if I can believe all of this. How have you not been affected? Somehow, they have us in a loop. Some of us notice this, so we try to fight the system, but they catch on, and we're taken out of this, whatever this is, and then we're restarted. You are successfully confusing the hell out of me. It's actually very simple. We've had this conversation several times, lived out the same scenarios repeatedly. Then you get caught and are reset again. How did you... There's a blue named 10. He's the one that started figuring out the system. Was able to fake his way through it. He taught me what I know, and that's how I've made it to green. Well, how do I talk to this 10 guy? Don't really know. He just shows up from time to time. Sometimes he's red, like you, and sometimes he's green, and sometimes blue. It's even said that he's shown up in stripes. But I find that hard to believe. The staff here are very vigilant. Does he know how to get out of here? What does that mean exactly? Do you want to join society, or do you want to go back out there into the wasteland? I want to... Subject! Green! It was that metallic voice again. Everyone around us panicked and covered their heads. Identified. Carol Louise Bennett. Age 16 years. You are to remain still until a chaperone comes to you. Subject red. Identified. Felix John Kellerman. Age 17 years. Do not attempt to flee. A chaperone is being sent to your location. I looked at Carol and she at me. I was going to make a run for it. It had to be very soon because the adults around here seemed to move very quickly. She shook her head at me and mouthed, "No." One of those pen lights with glowing green tips sailed into her head, and her body straightened out, and her eyes rolled up into her head. She only stood there paralyzed, with only her hands shaking at her sides. I heard a hiss in the air, and by sheer luck, I was able to move just in time before one of those darts stuck in me and turned me into some paralytic mannequin. I darted for the only door that exited the courtyard. One of those chaperones caught up to me before I could reach the handle. It slapped me and I was off my feet, and then it caught me in midair and hurled me back into the courtyard. I landed hard onto my back, knocking the wind from my lungs. The chaperone raced over to my convulsing body and lifted me up again. Another chaperone was holding the door open. With a spin and a heave, I was launched through the doorway. I braced for the impact into a set of lockers, or a wall, or even another person. But none of that happened. I was hurled into darkness, and for what seemed like infinity, I just spun there, in the air. There was a rushing sound, like a chorus of crickets and frogs, and then I was in class again. There were 5 of us. Sitting next to me was the blonde girl. I think her name was Carrie or Cleo or something. She was dressed in an oversized jumpsuit that was blood red like my own. She wore an even deeper shade of red eyeshadow. She looked at me reproachfully. "Hey!" someone shouted in the class. "It's 10! He's here!" I looked over towards the door, and for a brief moment I saw a boy running out into the hallway. He was wearing a striped sweater. I got up to investigate the hallway, and the teacher walked in. He looked familiar to me, but I felt so dazed and groggy I couldn't put my finger on his identity. "You'll never get out of here," said the blonde girl, looking me up and down. "Most of you won't." "Who the fuck asked you?" I said to her. "Let's calm down, class," the teacher said. His face was puffy like all the others. 2 tiny black orbs stared out blankly from deep-set sockets in the folds of the flesh. A grin pulled strenuously across his doughy face. I recognized the haircut. The build was a little different. It was plump. But it was my father. It wasn't his voice exactly, but it was him. Or what used to be him. Exactly, the blonde girl said. That sort of attitude won't get you back into society. And it was happening again. Only this time, I was aware. I don't know how they were doing it, but I was looping through the same day repeatedly. Perhaps this time I can change it. Maybe, if I can remember the choices I made and the things I've said, I can do this all differently. Maybe. And that, my friends, is the end of The New Flesh. It was a little different than anything I've written before. It was a little tough because I all three dreams that Felix had sent me, I found had a lot of merit and needed to be told. So I said, "How do I do this?" So I mixed them all together, and I think maybe it could get a little confusing. I don't know. I've gotten some nice compliments in the area because people have read this book at the library in town. But yeah, so let me know what you think. Damn, brother. Okay, well, Kevin liked it. So we will be visiting Felix again in his little looped time deal. So yeah, he. Yeah, I don't know. This one it was hard to write, and I wasn't after I got done with that, I wasn't sure if it was going to make sense, and hopefully it made some sense to you. So good. I'm glad you liked it, Jessica. Thank you very much. So so let's see. Coming up next week, I am sure that Bobby and I will be out here and singing and twanging and doing and banging and all that stuff for Tunes for Tuesday. On next Hump Day, we are reading Chapter 7 in a story called Love or Lions. And that was written by a friend of mine named Dean. And it's, think about mushroom trips. Think about that. So, Beth, it was good. Well, thank you very much, Beth. Good. I'm glad you liked it. So, I used Felix's whole family in there. So I hope my friend Jenny doesn't care about that, or her husband John, or her daughter Willa for that matter. But anyway, yeah, I used the whole family. I used their first names, and yeah, it was fun, but it was a difficult to translate it into what it was. So, but I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm glad others liked it. So next week's story is a little existential as well. But yeah, I mean, this whole book is kind of existential when we get towards the end, to the final chapter, which will probably be broken into 3 different parts because it's a very long chapter. Will get really existential. So, but I don't want to give up the chemistry of the book yet. So I want you guys to be surprised, because that was the only critique I had gotten from the book was something regarding that. I don't want to blow it for you guys, so I won't. You just have to tune in every week. So we'll be back next week. I hope you guys have a great evening, and I hope Bobby gets better, and I hope whatever you guys do this weekend you enjoy. It's supposed to be a hot one. I heard anywhere between 85 and 95, but you know, weatherman never knows and he never gets it right. But I hope nobody dies this weekend. I hope there's no violence. I mean, there's violence everywhere, but I hope it's not in your lives or my own. So I hope we have a nice, peaceful weekend coming up here. And yeah, stay scared. I'm going to retake my. This is my last chance to take my EMT FISDAP course test, and that is on Monday night. So wish me luck on that. This weekend I'll probably be spending it studying for it. So, but all right, love you guys. Thank you very much for always being here. Mwah. Appreciate you. Stay scared, Kevin. You have to wake Gypsy up to keep you safe, so you can go to sleep. Right? All right. Love you guys. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. I hope this is I hope fourth time's a charm. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, I might have to turn into a serial killer or something. Something like that. So, anyway. All right. Have a good night, guys. Love ya. Oh, and clap. You'll pass. I know you will. Thank you, Jessica.